Travis Geisler, NASCAR Competition Director for Team Penske, joining us on our Zoom call today. Travis, thanks for joining us. We're going to open it right up for questions. We're going to start with Bob Pockress. So Bob, go ahead and get us started, please.
Yeah, Travis, I'm wondering, it seemed like last weekend everybody had to choose kind of between an intermediate brake package and a short track brake package. Will you guys have that same choice next year, or with the next gen, are you pretty much told what brakes you're going to run? And is that good or bad in a situation like this where it seemed like teams were making a choice?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there'll be like two choices next year. I think the calipers are the same pretty much everywhere. There'll be kind of two rotor options, but all of the rotors and brakes for next year are a lot bigger. There's a tremendous amount of braking capability in that car from what we've seen from testing. Even just coming to pit road, at Texas, Ryan was driving and he was just kind of amazed at how far he could brake. Larger wheels allow for a lot larger rotor. So you've got a lot more stopping power. So, I think that anytime you're allowed to have decisions, people make bad ones at times, and that creates some variability. And I think that's kind of what I like about it, is having the option to make a bad choice or a good choice and being able to separate yourself. So I think the choices next year will still be there. They're a lot more limited, and we'll have to kind of see just how it plays out. I think the braking platform in general is definitely going to be it's so much more performance with that car, given the size constraints of the parts involved.
And when you're trying to figure out how to catch Hendrick, is there panic, or because of this point system, do you feel like you have until September, mid-October to get, to catch him, and that's where the championship's decided?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, you get tired of going on the track every week and not feeling like you have, the opportunity to go out and dominate and win a race. That's what we go there for. And, it's not the case right now. So, it's not necessarily panic, but it's certainly, the realities of where you are and how much ground you need to cover to be able to close the gap. I think if you look at, this past weekend, certainly Stuart Haas had a very good weekend. I think, the 9, the 48, 24, those guys seem to be a lot more raceable or beatable. The 5 is certainly even has a margin on his teammates right now. So, it's all things you look at and try to figure out, what to go work on. The point system definitely allows for the ability to close the gap. Last year, the 4 car was kind of the example that, you look at 9 wins and really dominated the season and didn't even have an opportunity to run for it at Phoenix. So anything can happen, and it usually does. I don't think you would have looked at the 9 car as being the guy you would have said was going to go win the championship as the playoffs started to unfold, and kind of had some heroics and won the last 2 races and ends up the champion. So, not panic, but definitely, realistic on the ground that needs to get covered here over the next couple months. And then you've got to be there when it counts at the end.
Thank you.
Jenna Fryer, go ahead, Jenna.
Thank you. Hey, Travis. I get 2 entirely different topics. Do you guys only focus on Team Penske, or do you try to figure out what Hendrick has got over you guys?
What?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think primarily you have to focus internally, because that's what you can control. You can't control what Hendrick has and what they're working on, but you certainly compare against the best, and that's what the SMT tools that we have to compare the on-track performance. Where you're getting beat, where they're able to make more speed, whether it's entry, exit, middle, short, medium, long-term runs, all that stuff you try to break down to focus your efforts a little bit better. Focus your resources towards the areas you feel like that you're maybe being that you're getting beat worse in. So you definitely have to look at your competition all the time, and I think that's right now, obviously, that's kind of them, and we're all chasing them. I think also, though, you got to look internally at what are your guys saying? What kind of feedback? What are your teams doing? What have you had success with in the past? And go to work on your program. So, the best you can do when you're trying to copy somebody is be just a little bit worse than them. You're never going to be as good as somebody that you try to copy. So the only thing you can do is be the best version of yourself. And the way that we go racing with the engine package we have, with the nose tail, the stuff that the Ford car has, we got to make those the best they can be. You can't look at that area, but certainly can't be naive to the fact of looking at seeing it where you can be better.
What does your data show? Where are they getting you?
Everywhere. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Pretty
simple
much.
enough.
Makes it easy to go to work.
Yeah.
You don't have the kind of dominance that those guys have had over the past 6 weeks without, just, pretty incredible combination of things. Everybody's always asking, what is it? What do we need to work on? And it's kind of like anything. It's a lot of little things. There's a lot of stuff in a lot of different places. Certainly, the engine program's really strong. Seems like their stuff is been very well suited for where we're racing. Some of the RPM ranges of the tracks we've been, I think they've been really strong. And the 5 car has been able to put himself kind of in another league from everybody else. So I think we're all trying to learn off of the specifics of that right now.
My next question is looking ahead to Road America. Team Penske's got 14 consecutive Xfinity starts there, 2 wins, including the last race. Does that give you any advantage, notebook, over the rest of the competition?
It's certainly better than going to Coda. That one was like, nobody knew what the heck was going to go on. Our only dry lap on that track was qualifying, and otherwise it was pouring down rain. So that was about worst case scenario for a brand new place. Nobody had any idea what to expect. I think at least we know a little bit about the track. We know a little where you race, where the cars fade, where do you have brake issues, the things to focus on. I think that when you look at like Sonoma, you focus on very different things than what you focus on when you go to Watkins Glen. So those learnings definitely help. All of our crew chiefs, have crew chiefed at Road America. So that's a nice thing. At least those guys have been there. They know the track. Joey's actually never raced there. So we're working on trying to get him up to speed with what the facility is. But, our other guys have run there in our cars. So I think those are all positives for us. And, certainly a lot easier of a transition than going to a brand new racetrack, the way that Coda or even the Daytona road course was, which were really kind of sight unseen and good luck. This one we have a little bit better approach.
Do you have any personal experience at Road America? Have you been there, done it, seen it?
Never been there. So this will be a fresh one for me. I'm excited about it. It's a great area up there. Always seems like it has like rabid fans, just a great environment. It's got kind of a Watkins Glen feel, as far as the excitement level, what it looks like. So excited to get up there. And I think we're, as a sport, doing a great job getting to some venues that are welcoming to us. This past weekend was really cool for that. It was a great crowd, and the people in the area actually knew we were there and cared. And that's places we need to be going.
Thanks, Travis.
Thank you.
Okay, David Smith, I see your camera on. Go ahead.
Hey, Travis, given that this disadvantage that you seem to have right now to Chevrolet, it's occurring on 550 tracks, bigger 750 tracks, and none of these tracks have any kind of representation in the playoffs. In addition to that, completely new car next year. So is there going to be a point this season in which the juice isn't worth the squeeze in just attempting to close the gap on these particular racetracks?
Yeah, you certainly have to consider that when you look at the races that are in the playoffs and how it unfolds and, where you need to focus. But, I think that it's human nature to always try to keep racing and always continue to try to close the gap, because there are some things that will continue to be there, mindsets with what you're doing with your wheel rates and things will apply to new cars or whatever kind of car you're racing. Eventually you have to have the same, shocks, how they work at different places, ride rates, what you have. I think all those things are still learning. So you gotta keep learning. There definitely would come a point where if you're just kind of hopeless, you got teams maybe that aren't in the playoffs, that those teams individually go and start focusing hard on it. I think as a company, we've kind of got a group focusing on that car. It's a difficult project to focus on right now because we really don't have anything in hand yet. We don't have any chassis yet. We don't have things to go and work on. We have a lot of theoreticals and a lot of things that we're kind of pushing to try to get some direction on. But right now it's, stay focused on what we are. The more we learn here about, whatever is going on, a lot of it will probably apply actually, because you're just getting smarter about developing your process to find speed. And that's really the key to it. It might not be the specific, okay, we needed to do this camber and this wedge setting to be better. but the process that our group needs to take to be able to find what you need to be faster, that applies to if we're racing wheelbarrows or Gen 6 or next gen. So that's kind of what we're trying to make sure that we're doing correctly. And we've got to accelerate that and get better at it right now.
Fascinating. Thank you.
All right, let's go to Jordan Bianchi. Go ahead, Jordan.
Hey, Travis, appreciate the time. A couple questions about Austin Cindric. What has Austin brought to the Team Penske side as a driver in his growth, and what have you seen out of him in limited starts in the Cup Series?
Yeah, I mean, I think let's be totally honest, and I've told him this and his dad this. He could be pretty miserable for us to work with, and we would all deal with it. But I think we've been very fortunate that he has been great to work with, and actually does have a good bit of talent, and that's it's nice for all of us because we were going to work through it probably for a little while regardless. But he's made it here because of what he has, because of his work ethic and his talent. And I think that's probably the first thing that everybody noticed was the work ethic side of it. And I think when you bring somebody that's fresh out of school, he's a student, and he's remained a student. And I think that he's pushing everybody, on all angles on how you prep better for the races. How do you learn more? Because he knows he doesn't know anything. So he's in full on learn mode. And I think as you get more comfortable and you get more races and you're around this thing for a decade, it's just human nature to start to fall out of that learn mode a little bit. I think we're all victim of it as we get older. We watch our kids be able to learn something in minutes that we just don't learn as quickly. And I think when he's around, he's pushing us all to be in that learning mentality. So I'd say that's probably the first most important thing he's brought to me. I think from a talent set, his road course abilities are obviously very good, and being able to go test at some of these places, even if they're not in the kind of cars you're going to race, but having him there, having his experience, he's raced at all these places in different cars. So I think he's been pretty, it's been a good advantage for us to have somebody from some different perspective, different walk of life. And he's raced cars with diffusers. He's raced cars with all this underbody stuff that the next gen car has. So he's actually got kind of a leg up and experience on some of those things that we're able to kind of dig into and pry some knowledge out of. And then as far as his development goes, I think if you look at Atlanta, it was a struggle. His first Cup race, Atlanta is one of the toughest places to go. I applaud him for not shying away from the hard ones, kind of getting them out of the way maybe a little bit. And that one was like, okay, we got a little ways to go. And then Richmond was like, whoa, it's pretty impressive. Finishing position didn't end up that way because of the way the strategy played out in that race. But he drove from last up into the top 20, past some really good cars and was moving forward. And I think that's the kind of progression that, is pretty awesome to see. Richmond's not an easy place either. So, I think that being able to go lead laps at Daytona, he led laps at COTA, he raced hard with the 18 there. Those are the things that are great to see out of somebody that's kind of making a name for themselves. And it's been fun to be a part of.
On the Xfinity Series side, with Austin going to the Cup Series next year full time, where's Penske at in terms of keeping an Xfinity Series program? Is it something you guys are planning to do? And if you guys are planning to do it, is it something where you're going to have one driver in that car? Is it going to be a rotation of drivers? Just kind of where you guys are at. Yeah,
I think those are good questions that probably don't have firm answers yet that I know of. I think that's all being discussed. The way that the new car comes in, what all it requires from basically from our facility to be able to do. How we handle that program going forward, I would say, is probably a better question for people a little higher up than me. And, the nice thing about my position is they tell me what we're going to go do, and then I figure out how to go do it the best we can. And I'll wait until they tell me what that's going to be.
Understood. Appreciate time. Thanks, Travis.
Good thing.
Thank you, Jordan. Let's go to Kelly Crandall. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you. Hey, Travis, circling back to the topic of next gen, you said there you guys still don't have chassis or anything. So here we are in mid-June. Do we have any idea yet when teams are going to start taking inventory of that, and any concerns over a steel shortage or anything that we're hearing about that?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of chassis that are completed. They're going through their certification process, going through kind of getting all that part of it taken care of. I think there's some small things NASCAR's waiting on to release all those to us. So I think they're there. The capability of building them quickly is there. So I'm not super concerned yet because I think the inventory is there, the parts and pieces, the steel, some of those things. I'm sure somewhere down the line here, we're going to fight some sort of a supply chain hiccup just because the whole world seems to be fighting a supply chain hiccup, whether it's lumber, toilet paper, chips for cars, it's something. So, so far, our vendors have been delivering parts on time as they've been scheduled to. Certainly would be nice to have a car here or have them here a couple months ago, but racing is what it is. It's a just-in-time business, and I think I feel like the beginning of July that stuff will start rolling out to us probably quicker than what we'll be able to digest at the beginning. But hopefully everything keeps rolling along and we get some of the stuff in hand and we can start working through it. But it's certainly it's in the back of your mind every day. Of when we're actually going to be able to kind of get going. You're just talk so much about it. We've heard so much about it. It's time to just kind of rip the Band-Aid off and dig into it.
Is there any one big question left that hasn't been addressed with this car? I think maybe about the safety aspect of it. You ask NASCAR and they say everything's fine. You ask some of the drivers and they say, well, we don't really know if it's been safety tested. It's hard when it's a hard hit when you crash. So from a team perspective, have you guys heard anything about that, about the safety testing and the crash testing?
Yeah, there's been some communication on, kind of the partial testing that's been done. I think they've done, all the kind of, I guess I'll call it smaller scale testing. I think the full scale, full car testing is, the results of that, I haven't heard a whole lot about. I think it's upcoming very shortly here. So I think that's part of the, the process and timing of why everything's, maybe a little bit delayed on that. But I wouldn't say that I've heard a ton of information there. The best we can do is trust the guys that are involved over there. Guys and girls they have working on that project are the ones that are responsible for the safety in the vehicle that we have right now. So, I would assume that all the learnings over the years of, crashes that we've all had have been poured into that thing and have made improvements in it. I've always felt like that working on the NASCAR side of racing has put me in a spot where, the guys and girls that I go to the racetrack with every week, I feel like are as safe as anybody racing anything in the world right now. And I would expect that to continue.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Let's go to Lee Spencer. Go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us today, Travis. To kind of follow up on the competition right now, do you guys have enough parts and pieces that if you want to make adjustments to try to keep up with Hendrick, you guys have enough to go around?
Yeah, I think the interesting part of where we are right now, maybe as opposed to, a couple of years back and how we raced, there's a lot of parts that have been frozen since last year. We haven't been able to kind of bring out new parts and pieces in a lot of areas that used to be open. And a lot of that was in preparation of the next gen car coming and knowing that we were going to have, this whole flood of new parts and pieces coming in. So to continue to, develop new stuff for what was supposed to be the last year of it, obviously the COVID scenario kind of pushed everything back and kind of put us into a 2-year freeze on a lot of these parts and pieces now. It is tough, it's not how we used to race. It's not how most of us are accustomed to it. So there's a lot of things, where you kind of go to work somewhere and you run into a little bit of a roadblock and you kind of got to go a different direction and try to figure out how to close the gap with the parts and pieces that you have. And I think the engine companies are probably pretty similar to that with the way that a lot of their parts and pieces were kind of frozen on a development, perspective for this season. So we have what we need here of what we can make, that of what we can work on. We definitely have, everything, it's a great part of working at, Team Penske is you have what you need. It's just trying to figure out the direction that's open to you to go and use those resources.
And when was the last time that NASCAR had all the cars at the on the engine dyno together to give you guys an idea where you stand against the new ECR Hendrick Motorsports collaboration?
Yeah, I want to say that was probably Darlington last year. I think was the most recent.
Last year?
Yeah. I don't believe we've done anything this season as far as the engine dyno compare.
Wow. All right. Thank you for your time. Good luck this weekend.
Yep, it's a good question, Lee. That's
we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, good Good questions. Thank you.
All right, Chaz, we've got 3 more people in line here, so we'll start it out. Claire B. Go ahead, Claire. Claire B., go ahead.
Okay, I didn't hear you there. All right. You know, if you talk to Hendrick Motorsports, Travis, they will say they're not going to tell us why they're doing so well, but it's like, it's our people. You know, we hire good people and the people are working together. And they'll also say it's way too early to be so optimistic about how it might be. Everybody wants to rush ahead into the finale of the playoffs, right? Sure. When do we start thinking about that? And obviously you got good people at your place too. I know they're probably not going to tell us what they found, but it's got to be more than people getting along. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are periods in this thing where you hit on a few things in a row. You know, everybody's got development projects that are in the queue, and you know, usually you hit on maybe 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5, and sometimes you get on a run and you hit, you know, 3 out of 4, and it all adds up, and you really get yourself a margin. I think that, you know, the cars have gotten closer than they've ever been. I think the competition's closer than it's ever been. The problem with that, though, is a very small amount sets you way apart. You know, so I think that, you know, we're sitting here looking for these huge, big gains like we used to have to find to close gaps. But I don't think the gap is, even though it looks and feels tremendous every weekend, it's probably not as big as what it used to be. It's just now that the margins are so much smaller. You know, you're not looking for hundreds of pounds of downforce. You know, you're looking for a lot smaller numbers, and certainly their program has changed a lot. You know, they have changed how they operate internally, and you know, I think they've gone to probably a model that's probably a little more similar to how some of the other teams have operated over the years. You know, versus kind of the team to team program. It's a little more of a company approach from what I can see from the outside. And certainly, you know, the Chevy program has continued to kind of evolve and try to figure out, you know, how to make themselves more competitive against, you know, the other groups that have certainly, if you look over the past few years, have had the lion's share of the wins. So the other part of that is, I think, you know, the driver lineup has matured over there. You know, that they put some guys in that needed some seat time. The great talents, you know, certainly have proven themselves to be capable, but took a little time to get there. And that's always a hard thing as a company when you're trying to develop and evolve, and you're trying to develop and evolve a driver. You're kind of always in this middle ground of, you know, what is it? Is it, you know, the chicken or the egg thing kind of comes into mind. So, you know, now they've got, you know, obviously a world-class driver, and the other guys are pretty darn close too. So, you know, I think that's now it's kind of all rolled together, and the timing is hit for them at the right opportunity.
And I mean, I know the cutoff for the playoffs is a key time, but when do we start thinking, you know, with the playoffs ahead, wow, I mean, they're saying it's too early, and it kind of is, right? But when is it that we see who's going to be dominant? Can it shift around still, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think we still have kind of an oddball set of tracks coming up. You know, when you look at the schedule, you've got, you know, Pocono, Michigan, Indy Road Course, Road America. These are all kind of like, they're pretty unique places still, you know, and they don't have a lot of representation in the playoffs. So, you know, I think once you get past that stretch, you know, obviously you'd hope to be building some momentum and everything, but, you know, really once you get to the playoffs is where you really start to stretch. And even within that time frame, you can see teams kind of start to you know, trade places a little bit, I think, when it comes to the competition level. But you know, right now it's 110%. I can promise you that we're not sitting here saying, well, it's just the tracks. It's just because these tracks aren't really in the play. The amount of speed that they have had week in and week out. I mean, it's obvious that it doesn't matter if we're in the rain, if we're at Sonoma, if we're at Texas, if we're at wherever you want to go race. Their package is really fast right now, and you got to close the gap at any of these tracks would feel like progress, you know, and that's what we got to do.
Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to Dustin Long. Go ahead, Dustin.
Thank you. Travis, kind of in light of that, look, you guys have had practice, COTA, the 600, and Nashville, and this gap has grown with the Hendrick cars with the rest of the field. So do you feel like that anything that you've learned from having some extra track time will start to show up a little bit later? Or these tracks are so different that it's not going to matter what you learn or what you could get out of, the next few tracks where you're going to have practice.
Yeah, I mean, I think the code of practice was kind of off the, that one was off the rails a little bit. It's pretty weird, but certainly we tried some things that help give you some direction. I wouldn't say, sometimes when you only have 50 minutes and then you've got a couple hours, you've got to get in line for tech. There's not a lot that you can apply for that weekend sometimes, but there are things that you can work through as far as your packages and just say, okay, let's get a direction on this. We've all been thinking about this. Why don't you guys try that one? And you divvy it up amongst your teams and try to get a little smarter, faster, because 50 minutes is that's a pretty short practice to really go out, get a run or two to get acclimated. Obviously nobody's ever been to Nashville with a cup car of this sort. It's been a long time since we've been there with the previous cars. So it takes you just a little bit to figure it out. The track moved around a whole lot because of the way that the rosin was applied. We went from the bottom to the top, and it makes it hard to learn because the track's changing very quickly in that kind of a setup. So you get what you can out of it. I wouldn't say that it was the same as being able to go and test for a day somewhere where you can kind of methodically work through everything. It's a bit of a thrash, but we'll take any time we can get, and we'll figure it out.
So what does Pocono provide then with a Saturday race? I mean, again, I know that there's points on the line, there's a chance to get a win, but at the end of the day, this is essentially your one test day that you're going to have to do anything this year.
Yeah, it's tough because Pocono is one of those tracks that's just like way off the map as far as the bell curve of distribution of tracks. It's kind of out there on the tail, but it's still a very good opportunity to go and try some things. We're very fortunate that we got our wins, with each of our cars, so that you are in a position where you can try some different things and get outside the box a little bit. I think we need to do that and try some different directions and see, hey, even if it doesn't work for that race, can you check something off the list, or can you put something over that say, hey, this was a positive and we just need to figure out how to work around that. So this weekend definitely is a unique one and provides that opportunity. It's kind of a racer's dream in a way, because you always leave the racetrack and you're driving home, you're like, man, if we race tomorrow, I would just change this and this, and you actually get that opportunity to do it and get to see who does it best. And the way that the format of where you start and stuff is a challenge for this one, but that's it's okay. We use it as an opportunity and try to learn what we can.
All right, thank you, Dustin. And our anchor leg today is Alex Andreev, Charlotte Observer. Alex, take us home.
Thank you so much. Hey, Travis, thanks for all your time. Ryan Blaney was on earlier today, and he was talking about how he basically said, if he had a chance to do as much extracurricular racing as he wanted to, he basically would, but for team reasons, he can't really do it. So I'm curious what the philosophy when it comes to extracurricular racing outside of the Cup season is at Team Penske, and what the thinking is behind it.
Yeah, again, that one goes way up to the top. So I'm going to tread lightly on my response here, because that's certainly well outside of my purvey. But I think there's just been, you can go all the way back to Bettenhausen, for Roger, whenever that whole thing went on at Syracuse where he got hurt and got taken out of the IndyCar. And I think just watching different series, the level of safety that is involved, at different levels, it's very different. I think as you look at risk levels for your driver, who is an asset for your company, it's somebody that represents all your sponsors. You have your whole program built around your drivers. And I think when you see them in situations that you don't really have control over, I think that becomes uncomfortable for people. When you look at going and jumping in other people's cars, different things, you don't necessarily have the same kind of oversight to their safety equipment that you have when it's one of our cars and we've prepared it. We know, everything about it. We know all the safety stuff that NASCAR puts into their races. So, I would say that's probably what I see as being the biggest limiter to it. Does it keep you from developing and does it keep you from being a better racer across other things? I think when the opportunity is there and it really applies, I think it happens. And that's why you saw Brad Keselowski go race the dirt late model. You saw Joey Logano go race Volusia and Bristol in a modified. You know, we were going to race dirt and nobody knew how to do that. So, okay, we have a performance advantage here. Let's go do it. And he was, you know, everybody was on board. That was, you know, something everybody supported. And I think that applied to our series. So it made sense, you know, going and racing otherwise. I think that's evaluated on probably a case-by-case basis.
Do you think Roger could change his tune potentially with all the success that Kyle Larson's been having in the outside of NASCAR racing that he's been doing, or is this like a non-negotiable point for him?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything's negotiable. You know, I mean, I think he makes decisions based off the information he has at hand, and I think that's why it was very easy for us to get the approval to go race, you know, some dirt stuff at the beginning of the year, so the guys could get some experience, because it was, you know, we needed to. You know, to say that Kyle's other racing is what's led to this, I think that's, you know, that's all up to people's opinions and what it is or isn't. You know, I think that Kyle's a pretty fantastic driver who's been a pretty fantastic driver, and I think now he's in pretty fantastic cars. And I think that's a pretty dangerous combination. So, you know, he's certainly, you know, one of the best there is. I think we've known he's one of the best there is for a long time. I think now he's just paired with the right team and the right situation. And, you know, you put a dominant driver with a team that is peaking, you know, and has been one of the dominant teams over the course of NASCAR history. It's a pretty lethal combination. You know, I think Jimmy Johnson to me is a pretty good example of somebody who, you know, I hated to go to the racetrack every week because I knew that where he was going to be. And, you know, he won 5 championships in a row, and he couldn't race an Xfinity car worth a darn. I don't know how many races he ever won or ran in Xfinity, but it was pretty slim. And I think you look at that, it's like, you know, I don't know, maybe if the drivers need that, that's something that would be negotiable if they came and said, hey, I need to be in the seat more to get my craft better. Then I think he would definitely, you know, take that and look at it and see how we go do it.
Thank you so much.
Good thing.